What is up, everybody? What's going on? Beautiful Sunday evening. Can y'all hear me okay? Everybody that's here, can you hear me okay? Let's see. Okay, looks like I can hear myself. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Testing out the audio. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first ever live of the Gold Standard Podcast. I am your host, Doe. This is your first time joining me. Thank you so much for joining me. This is my first time doing this live. So, look, um, forgive me if I act as if I'm 900 years old, but this is going to be a process trying to figure out how to work all this, how to make it work, make it look sense. But if you're here, make sure and jump in the comments and let me know that you're here. Tell me where you're from. Ask me anything. Questions about the team. Question about me. This is all about kind of talking a little bit about the schedule and also celebrating me getting to 100 subscribers. And I know that's not the biggest and loftiest of goals or anything like that, but look, you know, I just appreciate it. So I'm gonna enjoy the small wins, and then the small wins kind of teach you how to enjoy the bigger wins. But if nothing else, thank you again for everyone that jumped in the stream. Feel free to leave your comments, please. I will get to them, and I will make sure that I answer every comment available while I am streaming live. Ooh, let's see here. So LSU's 2026 schedule was released. Was it Thursday? I think, but the SEC released the schedule, and we're going to talk about every game. I'll just give some brief thoughts. Again, you guys let me know if there's any issues with like you can't hear me on the microphone or anything like that. If you can't hear, if there's audio issues, please let me know. Like I said, this is my first time doing a live, so I'm going to learn as I go. And the next time I do one, it'll be much, much better and much easier, hopefully. So, if you don't know, the Tigers will open up the season next year versus Clemson. And that game will be Saturday, September 5th, a couple days after my anniversary. And that game is going to be interesting for a multitude of reasons. How does Clemson look? I think for all the hype and as crazy as that game was this year, the build up to it and everything like that, to say that it could look totally different next year is a bit of a wild thing to say. So, what does Clemson look like coming into that game? I don't know what their record was. What was Clemson's record this year? Let's see. Not sure where they finished. Let's see. So this year, Clemson went 7-5. So they had the same record as us. So two top 10 teams coming into this season, both finishing 7-5. Who knows what either side looks like? I'm not that far in depth on Clemson's roster and how they will look next year. I'm not sure. I think Klubnik may have another year. That may be that's something to check. Let's see. Cade Klubnik classification. So he's a senior. I don't know. Looks like he came in 2022 recruiting class. So this is his final season. So what does Clemson, according to Google, this is his final season. So what does Clemson do at quarterback? I think we may see a transfer portal guy maybe for Clemson and a transfer portal guy maybe for LSU. Kiara, that is the wifey. Let's see. Hey baby, how you doing? Do. I don't know how to get these messages to show up on the stream. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to get these things to show up on the stream so you guys can see them as people ask them. But yeah, so Clemson and LSU will both look a lot different coming into next season. Um, Obviously, as we know, the Tigers have hired Lane Kiffin. Um, Defensive staff pretty much is all in place, and I talked about this on my last podcast. The defensive tackle position is still open. We don't know who it's going to be. I think we see some clarity on that in the coming days, either Elijah Robinson or I think all eyes turn to Randall Joyner, who's over at Ole Miss, who's been with Lane for the last 5 years. So, what does that game look like? I'm glad Clemson is coming to Tiger Stadium so they can see what the real Death Valley looks like. That whole thing with them this year, and I've never seen a Clemson. I had never watched a Clemson game from that perspective before, like I did this season. So I never had any idea that they're on the field. They get off the field and go to a school bus, ride down the street to another spot on the hill, and run down the hill on the field. I mean, one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever seen. And me as a player, I would have lost all my mojo and all my buzz by that point in excitement for the game. So yeah, Clemson comes into Tiger Stadium where it's going to be 102 rocking crazy stadium fans. That'll be Lane Kiffin's first home game, and you best believe it's going to be a sellout. That game's going to be massive. That game's going to be crazy, man. The hype and the build up to that game, and just with it being everything that comes with Lane, and just that being the first game in Tiger Stadium, it's going to be a night game. I'm sure it'll be a prime time game, opening weekend. And who knows, as far as like, it's going to be hard to make like predictions on what I think and how I think the season goes because you don't know what the roster looks like. How does this roster look? It will look totally different by the time we get to September as opposed to what it looks now. So I'm not really a fan of making a prediction on what I think that game will be or any of these games will be, but it's still something to talk about. We knew that one was there. That was without question. So I do kind of like how the schedule is set up, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But after the Clemson game, LSU is going to open up uh, against Louisiana Tech, be their first non-conference opponent. Will come into Tiger Stadium. I like that they always give back to the Louisiana schools, keeping the money in the state. So another good one. I think we should be able to take care of business there in the Louisiana Tech game. No issues, no worries there. Tech was tough this year. Louisiana Tech played us tough this year, but I don't expect this game next year to be anything like this game this year was. I expect the Titans to have a much better showing next year on offense for sure. And I think that'll be more of the usual per non-conference opponent coming into Tiger Stadium. The big one. Shout out to the SEC for making this the first SEC opener for LSU. LSU goes into Vaught Hemingway Stadium and plays Ole Miss on September the 19th. Man, mark your calendars for that third Saturday in September when Ole Miss and LSU lock horns in the middle of the field. And as Lane Kiffin says, and as my episode says, spot the ball. Man, you want to talk about all the craziness and the drama and the hype and just the toxicity that's going to be involved in that game and that week. It's just going to be crazy. And we recently watched a documentary about the many lives of Lane Kiffin, which was a good watch. It's on Disney Plus, by the way. The reactions that Lane got when he went back to Tennessee for the first time as the Ole Miss coach when they were throwing batteries. I think he got hit with a golf ball. They had to get the band and the players off the field because they were throwing things. I think that's going to ratchet up times 10 when we go in Ole Miss next year. It's going to be crazy, crazy, crazy. I think you're going to have to up the security for sure. Whatever Louisiana State troopers or patrolmen are involved with protecting Lane, we would have to double and triple whatever that coverage is to make sure he makes it in and out of Vaught Hemingway without any issues. And then so on the 26th of September, the Tigers will take on Texas A&M, which should be a good game. That the first 3 out of 4 games are pretty good games for LSU. I mean, like tough games. You open up with Clemson, you get a breather with Louisiana Tech, and then you got two monster games back to back. At Ole Miss and then Texas A&M coming into Tiger Stadium. What does Texas A&M look like next year? Um, I'm not sure what kind of status Marcel Reed has. I'm sure he'll be back. I don't think he's leaving or going to the pros or anything like that. What does Texas A&M look like? They had a magical run this season. Does that keep up? Do they take the momentum and go into next season and kind of roll over with everything that they're doing this year and just keep it going in the next year? We'll see. We will see. And I was talking about the schedule breakdown. I like it because you go big opener at Clemson, not at Clemson, but big opener versus Clemson. To Then you go to Louisiana Tech, which is a breather. Then you got two back to back with Ole Miss and Texas A&M. You have another breather there with McNeese coming into Tiger Stadium. Another Louisiana team. Again, LSU's always pretty good about keeping that money in state the last few years, and I'm happy that they do that. Born and raised in Louisiana, so I'm always happy for those Louisiana schools to get money, especially when LSU's footing the bill. Uh, it does good for them to come in and, with all intents and purposes, they should slaughter McNeese. But you keep the money in state. Pay them as opposed to paying some other team to come from out of state that you have no ties to or that the game doesn't mean anything. And you get them to come in and you have a good showing with the state of Louisiana kind of putting on in that game. And yeah, so as I said, you got that breather. You got Clemson, breather with Louisiana Tech, Ole Miss A&M, breather with McNeese. Then we have Kentucky. We go to Kentucky, Cal Grover Field at Commonwealth Stadium. Kentucky fired Mark Rick this year. Not Mark Rick. Why did I say Mark Rick? Shout out Mark Rick. Mark Stoops got fired a couple weeks ago over at Kentucky. The new head coach at Kentucky is going to be Will Stein, the offensive coordinator over at Oregon, who I think is a very good coach. If you watched my um, coaching search video, I talked about Will Stein in that video and how he has had multiple different quarterbacks over there at Oregon. All of them has been successful. He had Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, and now Dante Moore. So he knows what he's doing offensively. Is it going to take them a while to get what they need over in Kentucky? Absolutely. I don't expect Kentucky to win that game. We should be able to win that game pretty good over at Kentucky, unless things are just drastically not where we think they should be, which I don't think will happen before everybody gets into a frenzy and thinks that things are going to be going out of the way. I do think that they handle Kentucky. And then after that, we have Mississippi State, who comes into Tiger Stadium. That'll be October the 17th, my wife's birthday. Shout out wifey who's in the chat. But yeah, that'll be another interesting game. I really like Mississippi State's quarterback, and I work with a guy who's a Mississippi State fan, and I'm teasing him every day about their quarterback potentially coming over to LSU, which I don't think will happen. It's not the guy's not in the portal. I don't know if he will be, but I just think it's funny to kind of tease him about, hey, we're going to take your best player. But I really liked what I saw from him in the Egg Bowl. He's got a ton of potential. Kamario Taylor. Kamario Taylor has a ton of potential. Um, from what I watched in the Egg Bowl, and I know it's more than that goes into being a successful quarterback. From what I saw in there, man, the guy has all the tools. And as far as quarterbacks, the thing you can ask for is just tools, and then you can work with the tools. So he definitely has the tools to be able to be a successful quarterback in the SEC. Whether or not he delivers on it is another story. And then not the big one yet, but October 24th, we go to Jordan Hare Stadium and play the Auburn Tigers, who will be under new look coach Alec Golish. What will they look like? A lot of rumors out there about Cam Coleman I know there's a lot of teams, including LSU, that want him to get into the portal. So they'll have a shot, and that should be an interesting game. LSU Auburn. I was glad they put that one back on the schedule. That's one of the ones I didn't like that they took. LSU Auburn games are just always crazy. It's always crazy, something crazy going on. They're usually tight games. They were the team that played us the best in 2019 out of all the teams. Auburn had the best game plan against Joe Burrow on that offense. So that game's always a good one. I'm glad they put it back on the schedule. And while we're there, the permanent opponents. Let's see. So we got A&M, Ole Miss, and Arkansas as our permanent opponents. I'll take a brief break from the schedule breakdown just to talk about who I would have preferred there. I really, really dislike Florida, so I would have loved for them to be there. With everything with Lane, it was perfect for Ole Miss to still be there. And then after that, it would have been a toss up for me A and M, between A&M and Alabama. I think the A&M rivalry when it first came about was a little forced, but I do have a distinct disdain for A&M fans at this point right now and how they've been acting the last few years. They have their oil money over there, so they've been walking and talking big game, but they haven't done anything just yet. They definitely have the opportunity this year to prove something in the playoffs. But my permanent opponents, if you would have asked me to pick, I would have picked Florida, I would have picked Ole Miss, and I would have picked A&M. The Bama game is a huge one, and I'm not afraid of that one. Sure, I would have loved to play them every year because it's always a big game when we play them anyway. But I think playing them every other year or whatever it is with the new schedule set up, that'll just make that game that much more intense because it'll be 2 years since we played Bama and they come in Tiger Stadium or vice versa or whatever it may be down the line. And I think they have to reevaluate all those permanent opponents after 4 years anyway. So 4 years down the line, we may have three new permanent opponents. I doubt Ole Miss goes anywhere at this point, especially with Lane Kiffin on the sidelines. But we may have Bama back, or they may give us Florida back. So we'll see. So after you play Auburn on the 24th of October, you go into you're gonna have a bye week as always, and then you're gonna go into facing the Alabama Crimson Tide, who comes into Tiger Stadium on November the 7th. Remember, if you're jumping into the live stream, please let me know that you're here. Leave me a comment, ask a question about me, about the Tigers, whatever it may be. I want this to be fully interactive. I just don't want to hear myself talk if I don't have to, rather than not hear myself talk for an hour. So you guys, please jump in, make it interactive, ask me questions, anything you want to know, um, anything you want to talk about with the Tigers, just ask it, please. But yeah, November 7th, first Saturday in November, we will be playing the Alabama Crimson Tide, and they will come into Baton Rouge. Who's going to be the head coach for the Alabama Crimson Tide? I think it's going to still be Kevin DeBoer. But look, there's a lot of stuff out there with the Michigan job. I don't think he takes it. I don't see any reason why Kalen DeBoer would leave Alabama to go to Michigan, other than Alabama fans pushing this narrative because they're unhappy with Kalen DeBoer and how he's lost a few games. But my question always to them is just like, you were never going to replace what Nick Saban was because he's Nick Saban. So the expectations has to be the guy's in the playoffs in his second year. He's in the playoffs, guys. I mean, come on. If you're in the playoffs, how whatever your record is, 9-3, 10-2, whatever it may be, yeah, you lose some games you don't want to lose. But several other teams would trade places with you guys and love to be in the playoffs. Me being one, I would love to see my Tigers in the playoffs and host a, you know, home playoff game in Tiger Stadium. That would be crazy. I would love to see that. So I think Alabama fans are a little bit too hard on Kalen DeBoer and kind of pushing this narrative of, pushing him out the door to the Michigan job and all this crazy wacky stuff like, oh, Kalen DeBoer goes to Michigan and Lane Kiffin goes to LSU. Oh, that's not happening, guys. Come on. But yeah, first Saturday in November is always set up for Alabama, and we will continue to see that next year. And then this is another big one. We haven't seen these guys since 2019, and they have been owing us. We play on November 14th the Texas Longhorns. Will Arch Manning be back? I think so. I think he will be. Um, Texas just hired a new running back coach in Jabbar Jaluk, so I think the Frank Wilson, the Texas stuff is out. I know that came up in the past week, and there were some questions about Texas being interested in him for the running backs coach job. Well, they hired their guy in Jabbar Jaluk, who is also from Louisiana, who still has a few ties in the New Orleans area. I don't think it impacts LSU much. Texas was already coming into Louisiana getting guys. They just got too much money. It's not going to matter. You're not going to be able to keep them out on every guy. They got Derek Williams a few years ago. They got Wardell Mack a few years ago. That's just going to happen, guys. So um, I think we'll be okay if Frank Wilson isn't on staff anymore. This episode isn't about him. I've got plenty of episodes up talking about what I think happens there, but that was just kind of a throw in there to talk about when mentioning Texas. And then after that, we have Tennessee. So we're gonna go to Tennessee and Neyland Stadium. We owe them from 2022, was it? Jaden's first year. Where man, I can remember watching that game and I had to work that Saturday. So I'm at work and I've got LSU game up on my phone or computer or pad or something that I'm watching. And we came out and when Jack Besh, shout out Jack Besh, fumbled that opening kickoff, I just knew it was going to be bad that day. I just knew it was going to be bad. Something just said, this is going to be bad. This is going to be terrible. And it was bad and it was terrible. I mean, we got routed at home, thanks to Brian Kelly by Tennessee. And we get our get back on them next year. So it shouldn't be a lot of motivation needed with this schedule, man. We got some good revenge games and some good games on the schedule. And then we close out on rivalry weekend. We close it out at Arkansas, which is fitting. That game has been the last weekend of the that game has been the last week of the season, and glad to see it back. Wifey asked another question: How excited are you to take your little girl to her first game next year? Very excited and nervous because 100,000 people is a lot of people, and obviously you don't want her to get overwhelmed or anything like that. But obviously, very excited to take her to see her first game at Tiger Stadium. Is that going to be next year? Who knows? Depending on what them ticket prices looking like. There's a couple of games that I would like to go to. I'd like to go to the Texas game, but I don't want to have to put our house up for mortgage. Alabama games the same way, and Texas A&M, Clemson's going to be a good one. So there's definitely some good home games to take her to. What we'll do, we'll see. So yeah, that's the schedule. But I like how it kind of sets up to where you kind of have a tough breather, tough breather. Can you consider Kentucky a breather? Yeah, but they kind of got like this: one major game, one non-con, two conference games, another non-con. Then you got Kentucky, Mississippi, Auburn. Uh, I mean that's a tough stretch down the stretch. After Kentucky, you have Mississippi State, which I think let's not even count Mississippi State. So after Kentucky and Mississippi State, but you have Auburn from the last weekend of October to the end of the season. You have Auburn, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, and you close out with Arkansas. And Arkansas always plays that rivalry game like it's their Super Bowl. So I won't overlook them at all because I can remember being in high school in 2000 was 2007 or 2007 or 2008 when Darren McFadden, this was Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Peyton Hiller's game, and they just ran all over LSU. And I think we were number one at that time. And I started watching the game before I played my high school football game. We were just like in one of the coaches' offices before we getting ready, just kind of watching the game. And one of my buddies came out and told me during the game that Arkansas had won. I think it went into overtime, but Darren McFadden just kind of ran wild in that game, just stupid wild in that game. How good of a college running back was he? Old Darren McFadden. So yeah, that's your schedule. Uh, Clemson, We got Clemson at home, Louisiana Tech at home, Ole Miss on the road, A&M at home, McNeese at home, Kentucky on the road, Mississippi State at home, Auburn on the road, Bama at home, Texas at home, Tennessee on the road, and Arkansas on the road. So your home games, I mean, you got most of your tough games at home. You got Clemson at home, like I said, Clemson, A&M, Alabama, Texas. To have those four at home is huge. And then your road games, you got obviously Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Arkansas as your super super tough ones. So I kind of like how the schedule shook out. The thing that you worry about in the SEC is the back to back conference games on the road, and I don't know if we have that. We may have gotten lucky and not had that. Let's see. Ole Miss on the road. That's not back to back. Kentucky, that's not back to back. Auburn, that's not back to back. So we do have back to back at the end of the season with Tennessee and Arkansas back to back on the road as the last two games of the season. So that will be tough. The statistics do show that it's very tough to win back to back road games in the SEC. And that's just how it shakes out sometimes. So I like the schedule. I don't think we got any raw deals here. Um, Definitely got some big games on there, man. That Texas, Alabama, Clemson, and Ole Miss games, those are all going to be must watch. And A&M too. I mean, those 5 games should be all primetime games, should be must watch games, should be college game day is on campus type of game. So I'm excited, man. I'm very excited. So with that said, kind of wrapping up the schedule talk here, I do just want to just thank everyone who has been a supporter from the jump. I made this channel right around the end of October, kind of right before Brian Kelly got fired, which is crazy how that worked out that I would manage to start this channel around the busiest time of LSU as far as media is concerned in a very long time. But man, I appreciate everybody that has jumped in as a subscriber. I appreciate all the views that we've been getting on some of our videos. I was literally talking with my wife earlier about, you know, why I hadn't done this earlier, or it just makes sense that I've always talked about LSU football. Me and my dad can talk for hours about LSU football, and we usually just bounce stuff off each other during the games. We're calling each other and half times and after the games and all the news. We're typically talking about it. So I've been talking about LSU football for a very long time, guys. I seriously started following the team maybe about 2005, 2006 when we moved here from Louisiana. We moved to Alabama from Louisiana. And kind of keeping up with it since then. I've been following the recruiting very strong since about 20, man, I want to say I've been following the recruiting very strong. I remember the 5 for 5 class with Leonard Fournette. What year was he? What year was that? What year was that? 2014. So I think I started hard deal following the recruiting probably about 2012. I remember when the Tigers got Quan Alexander out of Oxford, Alabama. Shout out Quan Alexander. He had hurt his leg or something in high school. Um, and Auburn was kind of the team that he was on, and Alabama was kind of out on him because of the injury. And I can remember LSU taking him in. And that's just kind of when I started following the recruiting. But I've been following the recruiting that long, been a fan for a very long time. And just to be able to talk about Tiger football and anybody that listens or whatever, like, share, subscribe, whatever it may be, I just want to tell you that I appreciate it. It does mean a ton to me because I'm just some kid who likes LSU football probably too much and talks about it probably too much and follows it probably too closely. So whenever I get to get on platforms or YouTube like this and just kind of get those thoughts out there and people reciprocate those thoughts with likes, subscriptions, comments, or whatever it may be, shares, it's just always appreciated. So I don't take it lightly that we've gotten to 100 subscribers. Look, the next goal is going to be for us to get to 500 subscribers. And I would like to do that as soon as possible. But let's just say in the next 90 days, it is December 14th. Let's say by March 14th, I want to get 500 subscribers. So if you know somebody that's an LSU fan, if you know somebody that's an LSU fan, make sure you tell them to subscribe to the Gold Standard Podcast. Well, we love purple, but it's all gold, baby. When you're around your family at the holidays, make sure you take some of their phones and just go on YouTube and hit the subscribe on the channel so I get some subscribers, okay? Granddaddy would love to hear me talk about LSU football. Uncle Joe would love to hear me talk about football. Auntie May would love to hear me talk about LSU football. And I would love to have them be a part of the channel, go back and forth, ask questions, leave comments, whatever they may be. So thank you. Thank you again for the love and support that I've received so far. It does not go without notice. It does not go unnoticed. It does not go. I don't take it for granted because you could have give your subscription or your like or whatever it may be to anybody else. There's an oversaturation of people talking about sports in general. So there's going to be an oversaturation of people that talk about LSU football. So I'm glad that you guys chose the Gold Standard Podcast as somebody that you would follow, as a channel that you would follow, as a channel that you would recommend to your friends and family, and as a channel that you would keep up with. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate y'all joining me tonight. We're going to end the stream. I'm going to try to do maybe one live stream a week, one pre-recorded video. It's tough. Your boy does have a 5-month-old as of the 18th. My baby will be 5 months old. Shout out Nova, Sky, Grace, Dodie. I love you, baby. She will be 5 months old on 18th. So trying to squeeze that in and take care and give my wife some substitutions while trying to make these videos is not easy. So that's why I appreciate it if you guys just come and give me any type of likes, subscriptions, share it out, comment, blow it up, whatever it may be. I appreciate it. It does not go unnoticed. Thank you guys so much. But hey, this has been your boy at the Gold Standard Podcast, where again, we love purple, but it's all gold, baby. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be your number one news source for LSU football news. Let me know if you guys are interested in other stuff, like the baseball team is coming up. Would you guys like some basketball coverage? You guys just let me know. Whatever you guys want on this channel, you let me know. I want it to be very interactive. I want it to be very inclusive, where you guys' thoughts are listened to, and I just make it happen. Be on the lookout for my videos where I'm going to make my all-time LSU teams. I'm going to do one video for offense. I'm going to do one video for defense. It's going to be from the 2000s up to this point, and I'm going to give you my all-time LSU teams. But if nothing else, ladies and gentlemen, you guys have a great rest of your Sunday evening. This has been Doe signing off with the Gold Standard Podcast. Tell them, play Nick. Night, guys.